There are so many characters in the ever-growing Arrowverse that it can be hard to keep up.
The will of Grodd.
With new heroes and bad guys popping up every season, we thought we'd take a look back at some of the most powerful characters ever to cross our screens, ranked from weakest to strongest. Diving in at number 1 is one of the most visually insane characters we have ever seen, King Shark. King Shark looks pretty much exactly like what you'd imagine someone with that name to look like. Giant human bottom half with a huge shark head on top. And don't worry, he is wearing pants. After being caught up in the explosion of a particle accelerator, his DNA was fused with that of a shark, gaining a ton of superhuman shark abilities in the process. Abilities like accelerated healing, electrolocation, which allows him to sense bioelectricity and use it to track his prey.
I can smell him.
And superhuman speed, strength, and swimming. We're not quite sure why he became a giant, but hey, that's comic books for you. Well, he initially appeared on the show as an enemy of the Flash. After losing their epic battle, he was taken back to Argus and eventually injected with a meta-human cure. It was successful, turning him back into his human form, Shay Lambden.
Shay?
And despite their rickety start, when Team Flash needed someone giant enough to take down Gorilla Grodd, Shay sacrificed his humanity and volunteered to be irreversibly turned back into King Shark in order to defeat him.
And I have to do this.
Clifford DeVoe, aka The Thinker, was the main antagonist from season 4 of The Flash.
How can we enlighten them if their minds are too small to handle the gift of knowledge anymore?
In another of the copious particle accelerator accidents that seem to be happening in labs all over the place, DeVoe, who was already incredibly intelligent, gained a ton of superhuman abilities that would eventually turn him from a good man into a power-hungry super genius.
You somehow need to change the way people think.
Aside from essentially turning his brain into a supercomputer that no human brain can match, DeVoe's intelligence was now ever expanding to possibly infinite degrees. He can also absorb the powers of anyone he happens to come into contact with, and in the reverse of that, he can transfer his consciousness into any nearby technology, essentially giving him the ability to live forever. All of the powers that he absorbed gave him abilities beyond the imagination, such as technopathy, dimensional manipulation, DNA manipulation, reanimating effigies and lifeless bodies, telepathy, jinxing, sound manipulation, and so many more. All of these made DeVoe incredibly powerful, but actually would become his ultimate downfall.
A little humility will prepare you for what lies ahead. Now, if you will excuse me.
The more powerful he became, the less humanity he had.
You want to take away free will.
A pittance for humanity to pay to know peace.
His arrogance, loss of empathy, and instability due to becoming too powerful are what led Team Flash to finally defeating him at the end of season 4. There was a time when Mark Martin was just a regular guy, but then he was the victim of, you guessed it, a particle accelerator accident. Okay, so it's the same Star Labs accelerator accident that did create a couple of the other metahumans on this list, but it's still quite the coincidence. Should we be more worried about particle accelerators? Anyway, after his incident, mild-mannered but not really because he was a bank robber, Mark Martin was turned into the Weather Wizard.
Here I am.
He and his brother Clyde both developed the ability to control the weather. Unlike his brother Clyde, may he rest in peace, Mark's powers were a whole lot stronger and way more precise, allowing him to control and wield with greater accuracy. So much so that he can go from creating a mini tornado in the palm of his hand all the way to fully manipulating the weather on a huge scale. Caitlyn Snow has one of the most accidentally tragic backstories of any character on The Flash.
I'm broken, Barry.
And also happens to be one of the most powerful.
These powers you have, the more you use them, the more difficult they're going to be to reverse.
When Caitlyn was a child, she was the daughter of 2 scientists and was determined to grow up just like mom and dad. One day, her father found out that she shared the same gene for ALS as he did, and attempted to cure her using an experimental cryogenic therapy in order to stop the progression of the disease.
But I did manage to freeze the progression of that disease.
While it worked, the treatment also accidentally created a dormant alternate personality with cryokinetic powers, who would later be given the name Killer Frost. Killer Frost has all sorts of cryokinetic abilities, from accelerated healing, wielding ice and frost by freezing the air particles around her, and a freezing kiss, which enables her to freeze her victims with a single touch. The Monitor, aka Marnovu, aka LaMonica Garrett, aka star slam ball player The Machine, is, put simply, an alien who represents all positive matter in the universes. He is an interdimensional traveler who can move through different universes with ease, and his purpose is to monitor the dimensions and keep them positively balanced against the negative assaults of his opposite, the aptly named Anti-Monitor. What is the Monitor actually able to do? Well, he can tell the future, for one. He's also able to bargain with fate, like when Oliver Queen came to him to save Flash and Supergirl. He can use his mind to move objects and people, but the actual extent of his power is still unknown. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, we will surely learn more. Cisco Ramon is the kind of person who makes you jealous. He's got it all: a sense of humor, a fulfilling career, a sick pair of shades, and a supernatural ability to control vibe. Before the powers, Cisco was already a genius-level engineer at Star Labs and would have probably just been fine to stay that way. Then he got sent down to the core chamber of Star's malfunctioning particle accelerator to take it to London town. Even though he didn't notice it for 2 years, the explosion changed him forever. It altered his DNA, allowing him to physically manipulate the vibrations of the universe. What exactly does this mean? He can perceive events throughout the space-time continuum. They first came to him as dreams, but after honing his powers, he became able to channel his perception by just touching people. This is called vibing. But Cisco doesn't just perceive throughout space, time, and dimensions. He can travel through them and even open portals for others. Plus, he can harness the vibes into a blue physical force to shoot at people. Gorilla Grodd is a metagorilla, and a prime example of animal testing gone wrong. Originally, he was just a normal silverback gorilla and a test subject at Star Labs, but when the particle accelerator exploded, the dark matter that it released reacted with all the chemicals that had been injected into his body. This is when he became a metagorilla, meaning he was granted self-awareness, that extra level of cognition that us humans enjoy. The reaction also gave him something that Homo sapiens do not usually possess: psychic powers. This includes normal telepathy. This includes regular telepathy, so he can tell what other people are thinking, and when he wears King Shark's telepathic crown, he gets super telepathy. The telepathy also has a defensive side. He can block the psychic intrusions of others with a mental shield. When Grodd wants to fight but doesn't want to get his hands dirty, he can project a mental blast that leaves its victims either unconscious or writhing on the ground in pain, kind of like the click of a sperm whale. Grodd also takes a page out of Mysterio's book. He can create psychic illusions inside other people's minds. When you have one of these tricks projected inside of your head, it seems like it's completely real. The Flash himself has fallen victim to these attacks a number of times, flashing back to when he was being experimented on. But Grodd's powers aren't just mental. The explosion altered his body too, augmenting his size, strength, and agility. In other words, this is not a gorilla you would want to run into in a dark alley. Firestorm is a complicated one. Or two. Because Firestorm is always two people.
Those highly reactive molecules needed something to bond with in order to stabilize.
The balance between the two is being negotiated constantly, with Firestorm in the form of countless atomic reactions, which manifest themselves as Firestorm's nuclear powers. Because Firestorm is always a two-person being, each merge has to happen between two compatible, willing parties. A merge without the consent of both involved means serious conflict within Firestorm. This is what happened when Martin Stein, who's always half of the merged being, paired up with Ronnie Raymond, creating the first unstable Firestorm. Luckily, they were able to quantum splice back into two people and work out their differences, eventually splicing back together on purpose to harness the full potential of their fission. This includes the ability to fly, to absorb and harness other energy sources, to transmute the form of matter itself, and to shoot out nuclear energy as fire. In the battle with Reverse Flash, Ronnie sacrificed himself, so Martin had to find another half, which he eventually did in Jax. The young mechanic and the old scientist make a perfect mix of brains, brawn, and intuition.
Not bad for your first go at this.
In the 22nd century resided a man named Eobard Thawne, who was descended from the deceased Eddie Thawne, a notorious time criminal and former nemesis of the Flash.
You're gonna have to catch me.
Because of his lineage, Eobard completely idolized the 21st century Flash to the point that he actually recreated the accident that transformed Barry Allen in the first place, becoming a speedster himself.
Things just got a lot more complicated, didn't they?
But during his trip back in time, Eobard found out that he was fated to become the Flash's worst enemy.
It's not wise to make promises you can't keep.
And because of this revelation, he grew to detest his former hero. Eventually, his hatred grew into a manic obsession, and Thawne became the exact opposite of the Flash, the Reverse Flash.
All of you will feel my wrath.
I'm pretty sure that this one goes without saying. Those are some seriously powerful heroes and villains, and that isn't even the half of them. Who do you think is the most powerful character on The Flash? What about the weakest? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to The Binger while you're here. Thanks for watching.